Add to the speaker?
Why, yes, Paul. Yes.
You've heard AM, you've heard FM. Now, tune into DM Radio, the world's longest running show about data. Each week, host Eric Kavanaugh interviews the brightest minds in the world of information management. Want to be on a show? Send an email to info@dmradio.biz. Now, here's your host, Eric Kavanaugh.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back once again to the longest running show in the world about data. It's called DM Radio. Yours truly, Eric Kavanaugh here. Excited to have a cast of characters who are all experts and social influencers. We're going to talk about CES, the Consumer Electronics Show Must Go On. It's coming in January, of course, in Las Vegas. Huge, huge conference all about consumer electronics. What's new, what's exciting, what's happening. I think we're going to hear a couple main threads come through on this. Obviously, AI is everywhere, artificial intelligence, thanks to OpenAI and ChatGPT. And of course, Google has Bard and Anthropic has Claude. And there are all kinds of these models out there that are really fundamentally changing how business gets done. So that's going to be something. Drones, obviously, robotics. We'll hear from Jim Harris in our podcast bonus segment to talk about the API economy. So there are lots and lots of things happening. I think the real big story for me is the confluence of these technologies, because what we're going to see now is how AI and robotics and analytics and data all come together to coalesce and create really fascinating new technologies. The automation component of Gen AI is huge. The ability to tap into sources of truth, repositories of information, databases, federal databases, other government databases, business databases, and just have conversations with them. That is going to be massive. That is going to be majorly game-changing for the media as well. And I'm a media guy, so we're going to see tremendous transformation over the next few years. And I think that this CES conference is really just going to be the tip of the iceberg of what we're seeing out there in the real world. And so with that, let's bring in our guests. We'll be talking to several people. Chris Pereira from Impact is on the line. We have Evan Kirstel, the legendary influencer, and Irma Rastegayeva. She is with a company called Evira, I believe, Health, and all experts in their fields. I'll start with Chris Pereira, dialing in from Dubai, I do believe. Chris, tell us what's going on with you. What do you see happening at the CES? What gets you excited?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. It's great to be here with you, and I'm super excited for CES 2024 for a few reasons. AI is definitely the key word, but what AI can actually do from a consumer tech perspective, I think for me, being from Canada, Toronto, lots of snow, lots of grass to cut. I'm seeing a lot of really cool tech actually related to smart automation. So AI. Jim Harris is a big proponent of what you can do with APIs and on the tech front in terms of content. For me, I want a robot to push my snow and cut my grass because I'm really tired of that. So there's a lot of cool tech coming from all around the world in terms of automation. So that's one thing I think is very cool. I'm in Dubai, as you mentioned, for COP28, and at CES also, there's going to be a lot of green technology, clean technology, battery technology, even maybe some car companies, I think. So I think all of that is very, very cool. AI can help with efficiency, and efficiency can cut down on everything related to sustainable development, cutting down on carbon
Sure.
in all aspects. So I think that's what I'm really looking forward to. But like I mentioned, in terms of automation, I think the automated snowblowers, automated vacuums, automated everything is on my mind this year.
Yeah, that automation component is key, and we'll talk a bit more about the generative AI side of the equation. Jim was talking before the show about the capacity to have these engines spin up documents for you. So instead of having human beings sit around hammering away and boring insurance documents, for example, you can just connect operational systems that take orders and want quotes, connect that to a database and some analytic capabilities to come up with those quotes, and then use Gen AI to write the forms out. I mean, Holy Christmas. Like these are really robust automation scenarios that are going to save tremendous amounts of time and really free up humans to do other things. And there's a company I've been talking to, Alta ML, and they've got a theme, higher value work. And that's what your people should be focused on. So embrace these technologies, use these technologies, and then you, the human being, can do higher value work. I'll throw that to you, Chris. What do you think about that as a general theme?
Absolutely. So my first job was in a factory, and after you've done the really tough work that should be done by robots, you realize no one should do those jobs. Like I mentioned, I hope that we can automate everything. But like you mentioned, I think bringing our work to the next level in terms of doing valuable work, that's something that can make life better for everyone, I think. So sort of half joking, half taking it seriously, that when a robot does take care of the grass for you, or does the dishes if we have a dishwasher, does anything for us, we have time to do something more valuable. So first of all, I'm not worried about us losing our jobs to robots. I think there's more work that needs to be done than can be done always. So I think that's something that maybe we can discuss. But I think freeing up our time to do more valuable things in our lives, that's definitely what AI is going to do for us in the future, including with content creation, etc.
Right. I love it. And it's not going to take away all the content jobs either. I should just point that out. Creative types are going to be riding on top of these engines, using them to spark ideas, using them to create outlines. But your personality is always going to shine through your work. I say that to all the creative people out there. So don't be afraid of this stuff. You got to leverage it. It's another tool in the tool bag, basically. Well, stick around, Chris. We'll get you into the roundtable. I want to get Irma Rastegayeva from Evira Health. Irma, you've been tracking these trends for quite some time. And in health, of course, there's tremendous advances that we're seeing now thanks to AI. We're hearing about algorithms that can read MRIs better than doctors can. And again, it's not going to take the doctor's job, but it is another tool in the tool bag to help the doctors. What are you excited about coming into CES, Irma?
Well, absolutely. I am looking forward to learning about all these futuristic tools and technologies that can help us free up our own personal time to focus on what we're passionate about and really want to dedicate ourselves to. And that for me is all things healthcare. It's technology in healthcare. It's improving patient experience. It's making physicians and nurses' jobs easier. It's taking busy work out of their hands and giving it to technology to do smartly, to augment their own time. So yes, I'm also excited about all the convergence of different technologies. And when I'm at CES, I will be specifically seeking the variety of different innovations in the digital health, in the wearable space, obviously AI applications in healthcare. Every year at CES, the presence of digital health component has been growing. Last year, it was more than a quarter of the whole CES show. I cannot wait to see how much of a presence it's going to be this coming January. And just to perhaps highlight some of the specific things I'm looking forward to is, of course, practical applications of AI when it comes to healthcare. So both on the us as patients, consumers side, what can we use to gain further insights into our own health, into our own well-being? What can we learn about our own habits, about our own daily routines that either hinders our health or contributes to becoming more strong and resilient? I'll be looking for any advances in wearable technology. We want to have more and more capability in these wearable devices, again, to empower ourselves. I'm going to be looking for advances in telehealth and telemonitoring and this new advance of idea of hospital at home. This is very exciting to me. I'm also, of course, will be attending the whole Digital Health Summit, which will bring a sampling of different technologies to the CES attendees, including things like Moderna presenting on how they use AI and machine learning to develop better vaccines and to better deploy the mRNA technology to discovering other cures for cancer, other types of vaccines, not just COVID vaccine that we all know Moderna about. So maybe I'll stop here, and then we'll just have more conversations diving into these areas.
Well, sure. And just thinking about, again, this confluence of technologies, think about the Fitbit revolution, where either it's on your watch or your Fitbit or some other device that's tracking your heart rate, your breathing rate, for example. You can track all these things and then have that feed directly into your doctor's office, where it can be checking to see if there are any irregularities. And with the predictive capabilities we now have, you can get early warning signs for things like diabetes, like cancer, pulmonary disease. We know in healthcare, the earlier you identify a problem, the earlier you start to address that problem, the better off you're going to be. So we can finally get to a place where we know our health conditions ahead of time. We can take preventive measures to stay healthy. To me, that is a huge change, and it's a wonderful use of technology. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Myself, as a 30-year patient advocate and a cancer survivor and a patient myself, I'm very interested to be as, the whole healthcare continuum, to be as much to the front of it as possible, be upstream. So obviously disease prevention is paramount. That's top of mind for me. And our early disease detection. I think the more resources we spend on those two areas, the better our overall healthcare population healthcare would be. And also that's more empowering. So again, as you were saying, Eric, the more data we can collect on ourselves, unfortunately, that part where you said it's all fed to our doctors and they can drive actionable insights, that's not quite there yet. So I'm looking to see what innovations could come down the pike on that specific front, because not much of this data right now that we can collect on ourselves is quite actionable by the healthcare professionals. So it's still on us as patients ourselves, as self-empowered individuals, to try to make sense of our own health data and maybe present it to our physicians when we go see them. It's not quite there yet to feed it automatically. I mean, there's some startups in the field that have their own networks and their own physicians, and then they build it on this,
Right.
Getting this data and feeding it into the doctors. It's unfortunately not quite part of the mainstream yet, but we're moving in that direction. And I, like you, are very excited about the possibility of that.
Yeah, that's a really good point that you make, and shout out to people in the healthcare institutions. Hey, let's get our attention focused on that, guys. I know there are HIPAA concerns, there are all sorts of concerns about transferring information, but if you're the patients and you want your doctor to have this information, I'm pretty sure that should be a fairly seamless conduit in the future. So we'll see. But stick around, Emma. Let's get our last guest in, Evan Kirstel, waiting patiently in the wings. Evan, you of course have been tracking this stuff for years. It's kind of amazing to see, again, as this confluence happens, this just J curve go up in terms of innovation, in terms of new products, new technologies, new ways of doing things. What's on your docket for the really exciting things? What are you looking forward to?
Well, there's so much, but I would broadly characterize it under the Internet of Things, something I, as a geek and a enterprise insider, have been following with interest. And for years, I mean, we've had a vision of the Internet of Things that, has been pretty fragmented and slow to, take off from a consumer standpoint. We all have internet connected devices at home, but there's been real challenges with ease of use and interoperability, and so it's kind of been a hot mess in our homes. But that's changing. There's a new standard, Matter, that will allow basically plug and play off the shelf from all the different products. And you see at Best Buy really empower the consumer to make all these devices work together. And for enterprises, we have really mature 5G technologies and silicon and software now. So 5G is being embedded in every kind of device imaginable, from CPAP machines to fleets to food delivery trucks. And So there's just a huge surge of internet-capable, connected, always-on devices, including in healthcare, the kind of that Irma was talking about. And so we'll see a real wave of adoption, not just as the devices get easier to use and with Matter kind of plug and play, but as the devices get smarter with large language models. We will be able to communicate to these devices via natural language. And although we've had things like Alexa for years, hardly a kind of a smash hit, still, not viewed as cutting edge tech. So yeah, really a lot to look forward to in our homes. And just a myriad of applications, from making our homes safer and smarter to helping with energy efficiency and energy management, and to hospital at home kind of scenarios and remote patient monitoring, to games and toys and lighting and so much more. So all of that will be, a big part of what we'll see at CES.
Yeah, and you bring up a couple really good points there about Alexa, for example. We've had these AI technologies in my phone. I have a Samsung, I've got Bixby, and the success rate is kind of low on some of this stuff. I'll ask for direction to the pizza place. It gives me directions to some pizza place and 100 miles away. I'm like, no, I'm not going 100 miles away for the pizza place. So we haven't got all the rough edges buffed down yet, but I do think that's starting to happen. And it's like there's so much pressure from every direction because you get innovation in these different pockets that then kind of spreads out and impacts everything else. So I think we're probably going to see Alexa and these other search technologies like Bing, for example. I think they're going to start benefiting significantly from this AI stuff. But I don't know. What do you think, real quick?
Yeah, no, I think we've seen the power or the art of the possible with Chat GPT, and you've got new models out there every day. And I think once you see these in action and you're able to talk to your smart thermostat in a natural way, it's going to be really a game changer for a lot of these devices that have been hard to use, hard to set up, and quite challenged when it comes to security and interoperability. So look for sort of the second wave, third wave maybe of IoT devices.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And the Internet of Things, we've been hearing about it for years now, for really realistically 20 years or so. But in the last 5 years, we've made tremendous advances. And I think now with the power of these new AI models, we're going to get even closer to where we want to be, which is to be able to see all the objects out there. Think about fleets of vehicles, for example. Anyone who's in the asset management space, to have sensors on those assets, to be able to sense where they are, know what their status is, know what their working condition is, to be able to marshal all that stuff, incredibly powerful, incredibly valuable for the service provider and for the users. But folks, don't touch that dial. I'll be right back. You are listening to DM Radio.
What if you paid for by legal? Welcome back to DM Radio. Here's your host, Eric Kavanaugh.
All right, folks, back here on DM Radio, we're talking all about the CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, coming soon to Las Vegas. I believe it's this January 9th through the 12th. And we'll all be there on site doing interviews. So if you want to get some extra traction from your announcement at CES, reach out to us. Send me an email, info@dmradio.biz. We'll be happy to work with you to get some amplification. That's the term that's used these days. And Chris Pereira, I'd like to bring you back in from Impact. We have humans talking to machines now, machines talking to machines in human language. We have these adversarial AI models. It's a very interesting time now. It's a time for some deep ethical conversations as well, it seems to me. I know that the White House has issued this executive order here in the United States on this. We need the best minds to get together to really try to hash out some basic principles. And one of my good friends, Sean Brem from CrowdPoint Technologies, he says, Isaac Asimov, rules for robots. Let's go back to the basics here. Like, do not harm any people, do not let people come to harm, all that kind of fun stuff. What are your thoughts about the ethical considerations here?
Oh gosh, yeah. Even those basic principles, there's so many loopholes and problems. What's best for the human? Do we keep them 100% safe, or life is not safe in general, right? So keeping them safe might be keeping us locked in a room somewhere. So it's hard to say where we would go. There's other questions about AI that I think are closer to home also, that in terms of automation, I often tell people when I do presentations that our next device might buy itself for you because it knows you so well, and it might just show up one day. And these sort of things will be beneficial to us in terms of automation, and where we go from human to AI interaction, or human to computer conversation. I think that's where we're going to see a lot of the initial benefit. But down the road, I think AI to AI is very interesting too, as we get closer to a more automated IoT ecosystem. For example, at home, your fridge might be talking to your thermostat. Your thermostat will be talking to other things. Hey, our goal is to minimize whatever your goal is. Comfort? Is it economy? Is it whatever you want to do? We want to optimize for our new baby that we just had a few months ago. We want to make sure they're comfortable. So that's going to be all computer to computer. And maybe, I know Irma was just speaking about healthcare. We actually work with a company that does diagnosis of disease by voice through AI.
Mm-hmm.
Just by how you sound, they diagnose depression, for example, which is pretty cool. So those sort of things are coming down, and you might not even need to see a doctor in the early stage. It might remind you, hey, based on your tone of voice or your blood pressure, because we're wearing a smart ring, whatever, you should go see a doctor this week. And that stuff can be life-changing, life-saving. All of those things are really interesting to me. And we were talking about automation before we came on the air also. And I'm a more extreme pro-automation viewpoint, that I think we should automate everything if we can. And we should focus on the things that humans do best, which is creativity and doing the sort of the bleeding edge or the leading edge of technology and business. That's where I stand.
Yeah, absolutely. And Irma, I'll bring you back in since you're focused on healthcare. And we're talking about leading indicators and getting way ahead of the game in terms of understanding the risks that you face. And when I love old expressions. There's an old expression: when you know better, you do better. And so the more we learn about ourselves through the machines, through the eye, through the lens of these artificial intelligence analytical capabilities, the more we learn about ourselves, the better we can manage ourselves, the better we can manage our diet, our health, what we do in our spare time. And then even optimizing how people get through the process of going to see a doctor instead of just going on some regular schedule. Like I often think about maintenance and predictive maintenance in trains. We've talked with Evan Kirstel about IoT, and I was actually at the SAP launch of Trenitalia, the first fully instrumented train. And what's beautiful about the predictive capabilities here is that the engineer can know that what they're working on really matters. Beforehand, when there was no predictive capability, they just had to check every wheel, every bearing, look at every single thing on the train, 99.9% of which is going to be fine. And guess what? That leads to boredom. It leads to ennui. It leads to lower attention being paid to detail, and that leads to problems. But with predictive, both for humans and for animals and for machines, now you know that you're at least on the right track. For me, that's a huge difference. It's great for morale, and it's great for making sure we pay attention to what matters. What do you think, Irma?
Well, absolutely, on so many levels. And what you just said makes me think of virtual twins, for example, technology that's been used in automotive, aerospace fields for decades, allowing you to know what to focus on because you can actually simulate it ahead of time. And now we're bringing virtual twins to healthcare in all kinds of applications. So one example would be a full model of a human heart. It comprises of all different components. It's this 3D visualization. It's a electrical model, physiological model. And where it's been already deployed successfully is in pediatrics, in treatment of congenital heart disease, which is a very difficult area to tackle. Every single patient is unique. when it comes to these congenital heart defects, and the virtual twin, the living heart model of the human heart, allows the surgeon to plan the surgery precisely for that patient. It also allows to communicate with the family and explain to the family exactly what's going to happen. And, so it serves an educational purpose. It serves a purpose to improve surgery outcomes. So, and now virtual twins are being expanded from heart to other organs. Obviously, also what Chris had said about human ingenuity and creativity, I'm thinking of another exciting technology that I'm looking forward to seeing more advances at CES is 3D printing and this whole additive manufacturing. How does it tie to individual creativity? Well, there's people who've been now using 3D printing to create solutions, address their own rare disease that maybe there is no solution for. People have been biohacking or creating their own continuous glucose monitors before those were actually available on the market. So now there is additional ways for people to use 3D printing to come up with be their own detectives, be their own physicians to some extent, and to try different things based on all these markers and things that they can now derive for themselves from using wearables, and then using 3D printing technology to print even medical devices that they can now use and have a continuous feedback loop. So, that leads to personalized medicine. What about, organs on the chip? So it is virtual twins, which is a modeling of, virtual modeling of real life objects in the virtual space. And then we can have organs on the chip, so we can test medical devices, we can test new technologies in these amazing form factors that, used to seem like a science fiction. Now we see these in practice. So I'm excited about all of these things, including, we talked about VR and AR. It's almost every technology that you guys mentioned that has used in other fields can now be used in medicine as well. So I just love seeing that convergence.
Well, you bring up a really, really good point, and I'll throw this question back at you, and then we'll bring Evan back in. But you're talking about the R&D world, research and development, which until recently was the domain of only a handful of very large organizations who could afford full-time staff, very expensive technologies, analytic databases, servers. I mean, really expensive stuff that was hard to do. It took a lot of time. It was incredibly expensive. Now, anyone can do R&D. Anyone with the creativity and the drive to focus on something and use these technologies like ChatGPT, like Google's Bard. I heard they just came out with Gemini. Anyone out there can go explore and become part of the research and development community. That's going to bring all kinds of new products to market that were never going to be possible before. I mean, we're going to see a Cambrian explosion of new products and new technologies designed by citizen researchers and developers, right?
I love this. I love this notion, the citizen researcher, citizen investigator. That's very empowering. And I think maybe we should mention that communicating, so technology also brought us together where various patients that were maybe suffering alone, or these small communities of rare disease patients, can now exchange information. And we can, social media, like we're all on social media, we're social media experts, but regular people are using social media to exchange information, to stay in touch, to share what they're working on, to
Right.
create basically armies of these citizen R&D, citizen developers and citizen researchers. So I love this point that you're mentioning.
Yeah, Evan, I'll bring you in on that very point. We've talked about citizen data scientists, for example, in the data science world, but citizen R&D think about how many people, what percentage of the population in America right now is actually employed for R&D. I would bet it's like 1/100th of 1%. But now with this explosion of technologies like ChatGPT, with all the information that's available that you can dial into, scientific information on material science, understanding the different component parts that go into a chip, asking ChatGPT to show you how these parts work together. Granted, it's not always right. Human beings aren't always right. We have to remember that. It's like we want the computers to be infallible. We're fallible, so they're going to be fallible along with us. But as I think, in talking to Irma and all of you today, as I think about the citizen research and development cadre that is now just beginning to take shape, that's going to be a massive game changer in the world of electronics and the world of science. What do you think, Evan?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of technology that's being democratized and put into the hands of small business owners and entrepreneurs and innovators. And it's not just software. I'll be looking up a lot at CES, hopefully, for drones. And increasingly, there's a whole drone economy being created, not just for enthusiasts with videography and taking pictures and having fun and filming your friends. But there's a whole bunch of players creating new economic value from drones, whether it's for purposes of surveying or first responders or policing, or you're looking for sharks if you're on a public beach. I mean, there's just almost infinite number of opportunities created by this new low-cost, high-quality, programmable platform called a drone, and that'll be on display at CES as well. And if you look a bit higher, you're going to be looking at satellites and low Earth orbit Starlink devices, and that's creating opportunities to put, broadband in new places, to cover the world in a way we haven't been able to in the past, to cover the oceans and seas and islands and places where, we haven't been able to give service in the past, and to open up a whole new opportunity in the space economy for data. I mean, you can go on a satellite app now and get a picture almost near real time of your town or farm or business or home, neighborhood, and use that data for all kinds of useful purposes. So again, lots of opportunities up in the air at CES.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, and we'll get into this in the next segment to some length, I believe, because drones are absolutely amazing. And one of the epiphany moments that I had, the aha moments, was a couple of years ago talking to a technology provider software company at a conference, and they were talking about drones for surveying damage for insurance companies. And what they're telling me is that the cost per house of inspection, like when a hurricane comes through, a tornado or something like that, the cost per house used to be about $3,000. Meaning when you add up all the time and effort that goes into someone going out to the property, getting up on ladders to look at the roof, doing all this stuff, it was like $3,000, and it got dropped to like $300. So that's an order of magnitude savings. And I guarantee you it's even lower now. And the cameras can do all kinds of amazing things. You can have infrared cameras, you can use LiDAR, for example, to see where waterways should go for, basic stuff like water, to get water to towns, like future urban planning, to understand where to build new structures and where not to build new structures, where to find ancient Mayan temples, for example. It's because of LiDAR, because of this technology being able to scan from the sky to see what's going on in the ground. All kinds of things are possible. Drones are absolutely hugely important. Well, folks, don't touch that dial. We'll be right back with our final segment. You're listening to DM Radio.
Welcome back to DM Radio. Here's your host, Eric Kavanaugh.
All right, folks, welcome back to DM Radio, talking to three experts here. We've got Chris Pereira from Impact, Evan Kirstel, legendary IT influencer, and of course, the lovely and amazing Irma Rastegayeva. She's from her company Evira, health. And we're just talking about all these things coming together. You know, sometimes the innovation is a product like NVMe solid state drives. I got a client that is now enabling their customers to analyze trillions of rows of data in near real time. That's trillions with a T, not just billions, not just millions, but trillions of rows. And that's just crazy stuff. And then when you weave this all together, again, anyone can do R&D, anyone can do product design, anyone can do almost anything if they set their minds to it. And I think that's the real key. And we can also optimize things like supply chains. What's in your grocery store? What do they need to order? How much time do you spend doing this stuff? There are so many tedious, boring, hard jobs that computers can do well. And Chris, you mentioned that earlier when we were talking about how you worked at a factory. And so you know what it's like to, you learn, okay, it'd be better if a machine did that job. We want to do the fun jobs, the interesting things, the higher value work. I think that's the key to take away from this coming CES. But what are your thoughts, Chris?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. And I give you a specific example of a type of product we're going to see at CES. So we all love our pets, cats, dogs, birds, whatever you have. There's a very cool series of smart products coming and already in stores. Actually, you're going to see them in CS2. Automated feeding, cleaning, drying of your pets. So there's a product where actually it's one of our clients. I won't say the name on air here, but you actually have a dryer for your cat or your puppy. You put them in the dryer. It doesn't spin around. So don't worry, you're not going to spin around your puppy in the dryer, but you put the pet in the comfortable environment. It feeds your pet, takes care of it, and you get to your point, Eric. You get to do the fun stuff, which is play with your pet. No one enjoys cleaning the litter box. So you take let the robots deal with that, and you can play with your pet more. So that's one example.
Yeah, I would love to let robots clean up my dog's poop any day. We have 2 German Shepherds, and my one complaint about them is that they create a lot of that stuff, which is not so much fun to work with. So it's helping in every last aspect of life, especially the kind of unpleasant ones. And maybe Irma, I'll throw it back over to you. The health of your pets, the health of your dog. You know, some of these algorithms, they can sense by the tone, by the intonation, if there's some sort of a problem, the way a cat will, like, oh, there's something wrong with that cat now. I mean, we can use these technologies to learn more about whatever matters to us, right, Irma?
Yes, and not just pets. So there is now AI technology used in voice detection of diseases. I think Chris was mentioning one specific application of it. So I know there's a lot of effort to use voice detection for COVID, for pulmonary disease, now for depression. Can you think about it? Using our voice to potentially diagnose real physical and mental conditions. That, you know, I talked about the importance of early diagnostics and disease prevention. It's interesting how, you know, how animals and dogs could be trained to detect Parkinson's, and we think it's because of a smell that they can detect in a person who is years ahead of actually developing visible symptoms of Parkinson's. So the capabilities of early detection are just really mind-boggling. So, and the earlier we can detect potential conditions with humans or pets, the longer we can have them in our lives. And this actually reminds me of another area that we didn't talk about yet, and it's the whole family and elderly care. So family, I'm thinking about smart homes, smart cities, which would lead to healthy homes and healthy cities designed for our better well-being. And to dive specifically into elder care, I mean, the population in the US and in a lot of countries worldwide is actually aging. And we need new solutions, innovations in addressing how we take care of the growing population of elderly people. So the hospital at home that I mentioned before is one way to go. The remote patient monitoring, giving more kind of remote capabilities of keeping an eye on patients with chronic conditions, even specific technologies for fall prevention. People might not realize just how many falls could be prevented. And there is people who are developing smart insoles and shoes that can detect when a person is about to fall and create alerts. There's other technologies that can prevent falls by training people to have better balance. So it's just an incredible array of different types of innovations that we can deploy to address our growing population of elderly people. And these technologies that employ generative AI and being able to communicate with technology in kind of human language might solve the technology barrier problem that we typically associate with elder populations, where they might not be technology savvy, but if we give them the interfaces that can kind of meet them where they are, then we're making huge progress.
That is such a good point, and I'll use that for a final question, perhaps over to Evan, because what Irma was just pointing out, this is really a big deal. Another friend of mine, Lou Simon from Optum, mentioned something about this the other day, a company called Optum, a very interesting company. He said, historically, if we wanted to work with a database, we had to learn to speak database. We had to learn SQL, the structured query language. You had to learn, if you want to do data science, you have to learn Python or R. These are programming languages. We don't have to do that anymore. These new interfaces, these natural language processing interfaces are so powerful that they can now allow us to speak to machines in human language, and the human language is understood by the machines. Now, that's not tremendously new, but I can say for sure that we've seen a step change, as they say in chemistry, in terms of the capacity, in terms of the accuracy of these engines, these new AI models. Thanks to ChatGPT, Bard, Anthropic, these different companies have invested tremendous amounts of money in ingesting and understanding the patterns in written words, also the patterns in design, and being able to reflect that back. So the fact that we can now talk to computers in human language, like Irma just said, is going to allow elderly people to use all these technologies. They don't have to learn programming. They don't have to learn source code. They can just go out there and interact with this stuff. That's a big, big game changer. We can now speak to machines in human language. Evan, Kirstel, in your opinion, how big a deal is that, and what's it going to change in the consumer world for you?
Well, I think it's going to change a lot. We're seeing just a tremendous interest from consumers and businesses in this new kind of chatbot, human natural language kind of approach to talking to computers in a way that we haven't before. And that will work its way into all kinds of different products in a way that it's only we're only starting to see. I mean, one of the big areas for CES is automotive technology. So all the latest and greatest cars and car tech, in-car tech. And in the future, we probably will have fewer dials and buttons, and we'll have speech recognition that will do more than just, make a phone call, but could actually control the car. It will listen and watch your eyes and movement for safety purposes, and will allow you to, kind of humanize the technology in a way that you haven't been able to do in user interface, user experience design in the past. And that will work its way into all kinds of products. I mean, I was playing with the Quest Meta Quest 3 headset, and that has speech recognition built in. You can kind of, in addition to using your hands and controllers, you can speak different actions, and that will be in the Apple VR Pro VR headset that's on the cusp of being launched. So, speech is the most natural modality, and speech and text, and so we'll see all kinds of new use cases.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I'll close with an interesting comment I heard from the chairman of FPT, which is a Vietnamese company that does telco, it does software programming, does a bunch of different things. They're doubling down and tripling down on computer vision. And their chairman made a really interesting statement. He said, your eyes are the most important aspect of your input to a large degree, because he said, you may talk a lot, but you look all the time. Whenever you're awake, you're looking at stuff and absorbing that. Amazing stuff, folks. Send me an email, info@dmradio.biz. We hope to see you at CES. You've been listening to DM Radio.
In the know, I'm Jan Myers. Black